Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics on Friday, August 20th, 2021. What an exciting week it has been. There is something continuing to happen in Afghanistan. I continue to find it odd that Joe Biden is on vacation and has not taken any questions, and a whole bunch of other stuff, which we will dig into today. And perhaps just to get started, let us pull up our silver chart here, where you can see it's been another volatile morning where we see more of that same pattern that you're also familiar with, as here anyone who held a stop order at the $23 level got stopped out of their trade while it was spoofed lower. And I'm sure if we looked at the volume chart, we'd see heavy volume there, then goes back up. So let's say you had silver contract, but you had a stop order in case you were worried it was going to go down $2. You get pushed out of your trade there, and now your silver is 20 cents higher. This is what Bart Chilton confirmed. This is what the Deutsche Bank trading transcript records have confirmed. It was also interesting. I was listening to Jeff Christian of CPM Group explain what he thought happened with that Sunday night flash crash a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying, well, it's not manipulation. It's just that, the market's thin. And if you hammer a big order there, you can drive the price down and knock people out of their stops. He even talked about how people are holding stops and how he said the same thing as Bart Chilton. So now, is it technically illegal? Well, people are getting arrested for it. And now getting jail time, as you just saw in the video that covered this headline. So I would say yes, but I don't know. Is it possible someone could weasel their way out of the fine print and say it's technically legal? I don't know if that's possible, but in either case, it's darn wrong. It's clearly intentionally an attempt to mislead people and steal from them. So we shall leave that at that. But either case, you can see another divot. This one actually was interesting to me because there's one set of data that I keep an eye on from time to time that I've found certainly has produced some interesting things and mentioned the numbers 22, 25, and 35. And again, a lot of this is some guesswork. So just been keeping an eye on it. And I guess we got close last week, but there is the 22 handle there today. So we see silver at $25 sometime soon. Maybe that will be good. Well, of course, that would be good news. And then, I don't know, I guess one day it's going to have to get to 35. We will see when that is. Although in another set of clues we have going on here, we do have options expiration coming up. I believe the 26th. I would say please check that. I think that's what I read last night, but check that before making any decisions. And of course, make your own investment decisions, not legal financial advice, just a guy who was so bored at Wharton and was realizing perhaps while I was there that it was silly. Maybe it took a little while for it to all kick in, but then we're into a trading floor, just giving my advice here. But given that option background, I don't know if my face is covering this. You can see on the right-hand side here is open interest. So imagine you had a decimal place in there. This would be $23. Not a lot of activity there until you start getting up to the 24 level, which as you see there, there's a 522 and at 775 at the 24 half strike. Then up at 25, you got another 300. So on the call side, just based on the call side alone, and we'll factor in the puts too. But here you see probably if the banks are in this case indeed short, or let me put it like this, whoever is short would be happy if it went exactly to $24. And then it's interesting on the put side, if you look here, I was wondering where that range would be. Now, if you're short puts, you start losing as volatility goes up or as it goes below the strike. So here you see a decent number on the 23 line. So just with incomplete information, you could say, well, on the calls, the thinking would imply if someone was able to manipulate and jam the market to whatever price they want. As the Department of Justice court records confirmed, JP Morgan has done hundreds of thousands of times. If JP Morgan, for example, were short these puts and short the calls, you really want ideally at between 23 and 24. Let me make sure I have that right. Yes, they don't want the calls to go over 24. You wouldn't want the put side. You wouldn't want the price to go under 23. But then what becomes interesting, if I'm remembering all of this correctly, is that you have this baby here. 827 contracts on the 24 line versus 450 on the 23 line. So again, who's holding what? Is this 24 line one bank, 23 lines a different bank? Only Rost and Benham, well, not only Rost and Benham, all the banks and the CFTC, which runs cover for the banks so that they can facilitate these crimes, actually has the exact trading data records. Although I'd like to congratulate one of our true Arcadians, Shrooms Vision on Twitter, who actually did send in a Freedom of Information Request Act to the CFTC. And I might be able to even pull that up while we are live here. I know I got it in there somewhere, one of these browsers, but if you go to the CFTC site, there's actually instructions how to submit a Freedom of Information Request Act. And like expected, they gave them we don't know this or that the first time. But everything I've ever heard about that process is kind of like you just have to keep asking and get specific, and also think about what they are more likely to reveal. So anyway, that is one thing to keep a note of, because they would have these trading records and then I'd be able to give you a lot more specific information. But I guess just as I see that JP Morgan story again, maybe this is wishful thinking, yet what if someone from the Department of Justice is subscribed to the channel and they watch? I have called them before on multiple occasions, actually. I told them who I was, what I did. And I mean, if you're doing a case against, if lawyers are doing a case, I'm not saying there aren't other people who don't understand this. Maybe they're not watching my channel, but Rob Keens or Andrew McGuire or somebody else. I just think it's interesting. You see that number of how many people watch it. You never know who they are. So anyway, back to our option board here. Let me put it like this, without having done more precise math. If I were short 450 contracts on the 23 line, I was short also 827 contracts on the 24 line. And then in the call board, was short 522 there. My guess is that if one person were short all of those contracts, probably your sweet spot would actually be at 24. Or actually, here's a good way to look at it. So on the puts, you have 450 contracts. Well, I'll save the math. Maybe I'll calculate this one at home, but that would be my intuitive quick read that certainly if you're short these, you want it to go what's called pinning to your straddle at the 24 mark. So long-winded way of saying, I don't know, maybe if we saw a rebound to 24 in the face of hyperinflation, Afghanistan, 9/11, all these things unfolding, and plus as we'll get to, the forecast is calling for more of that. Wouldn't be the most shocking thing, but let's say between 23 and 24 with a higher probability to the 24 side. But we won't rule out $10 on Monday, or who knows, maybe we'll get negative $40 per ounce silver and we can get COMEX contracts delivered on that. I'll bet if we just made some space on the beach back there, we would find a place unlike that debacle they had with the oil. So anyway, there is the option board. Now, here's another interesting one that I've been keeping an eye on because some of the folks I talk to, it's not that I'm not trying to explain things, but, people say sometimes I go on tangents. I listen to podcasts all day on double speed. I've learned to photo read. I used to be on a trading floor where there was 8 screens. I'm not saying this is ideal way for peaceful harmony in life, but my mind is used to incorporating large amounts of information that I try to simplify here. So it's something I've been keeping an eye on. Toyota to cut output as chip shortages finally catch up to it. I don't know if this is connected, but noticing the things I think about just reminds me of how military applications use a lot of silver. Other applications that could have been used, things like HARP up in Alaska. Here, things like that require a lot of silver. We've heard about this before, but now the global semiconductor shortage has started to bite at Toyota, highlighting how a resurgence in COVID infections, as you may have guessed, is COVID's fault again. Now the Delta variant is stifling chip manufacturing in Southeast Asia, worsening a parts crisis for car companies. Japan's largest car maker said Tuesday was cutting production in the country by 40%. Wait, what was that? Japan's largest car maker said Thursday it was cutting production in the country by 40% because of a shortage of semiconductors, highlighting how the scarcity is hitting even the best prepared companies. It's hitting Toyota. Would a silver miner possibly have a use for similar type products that could go into a shortage, especially when we think about a supply chain? If you're not going to have as many cars, what will that do to the price of cars? And yet Ben Bernanke Powell says that the economy is rip-roaring great. Joe Biden lies to your face saying this won't cause inflation. I mean, it's already happened. I mean, he's like arguing the score of last year's Super Bowl when he says that. For much of this year, chip shortage challenges in the audio industry have largely stemmed from car companies miscalculating how quickly auto sales would bounce back and not ordering enough. Okay, so A, miscalculating means they could be wrong. So it means perhaps that Jerome Powell could be wrong. This is interesting. Not ordering enough. They miscalculated. They thought it was all good to go. So they didn't pre-plan, and then now they have a problem. We're not making it up because just cut production by 40%. What has Andy Schectman said about the supply chain in silver? What have we seen happen in February in the supply chain in silver? What have all the conditions that have unfolded since then, including the LBMA confirming that there was a disruption to the supply chain? They said how scared they were. Now Michael Novak, who was JP Morgan, one of JP Morgan's bigwigs, and I believe a board member of the LBMA, he had some connection to the LBMA. He's about to face RICO charges. Does that make the LBMA liable? So let me ask you this. Let's say anyone from the LBMA who has signed their name to anything there, any of those research reports, anyway participated in that. Now one of your key gang members is facing RICO charges. Well, we'll see how that goes. I wouldn't follow their advice, though. It's just my own personal philosophy. Similar when Jerome Powell, he started changing his tune a little bit about the transitory inflation. He acknowledged that it's possible it could go. I actually read his ridiculous minutes when he lied to his constituents again to steal their money. And one of the reasons, median home price hit new high in June. Sales increased 1.4% on strong demand. Now that doesn't sound like 1.4%, but let's see if that's just for the month or for the year, because in my experience on Wall Street Journal is, I mean, there's a lot of coincidences, but they have a knack for phrasing things. Oh, so that's just over June, but June sales rose 22.9% from a year earlier. Now we talked about the May number was around 24%. So do you think inflation is higher or lower than the 5.4% number that people who have a track record of lying repeatedly to you are lying about again right now? Again, you don't need to take my opinion for it. I don't know. You've had a lot of water to drink at breakfast or something. So, and I might just still be haunted by Gold's misconceptions. Knowing when to add existing positions based on the leading economic index. I don't know about that. Although what I did see was interesting here is that the same time that supply chains are breaking down, the shortages of products, which are leading to shortages of other products, which, could lead to shortages of other products. One thing we don't have a shortage of is digital credit on the Fed's balance sheet. Probably would even be a shortage of paper dollars if they couldn't just print them, type them digitally. Because here we see economists warn of market disruption as Fed balance sheet surpasses $8 trillion. So I guess that means when Bernanke around $2 trillion on the balance sheet told us it was transitory, either was flat out wrong or he was lying directly to your face. I mean, there could be another outcome that I'm unable to think of, but let's see. I did notice Citigroup had a warning yesterday saying that they see trouble right on the horizon. And you've seen a lot of the banks change their tune, which makes it fun to wonder if they want you to think something is going to fall so that you sell it and they can buy it, which is what I picked up from Jeff Christian's video of why he's forecasting a big dip in the price, silver August 26th to 28th. Although maybe he's using reverse psychology, who knows, but just patterns to keep an eye on. And again, we can see here's Bernanke's era. Well, here's where before the Lehman crisis, and then Lehman Brothers explodes, and he tells us it was transitory and temporary there. That was under 1 trillion. Then here's October of 2010, when he writes his op-ed in the Washington Post before QE2 and silver going to $50, where he explained again how it's transitory. Actually, he in detail explained how it's a Ponzi scheme. I just don't think he realized that. Then here was all of the tapering you heard over the last decade, came down slightly. Then that was the end of, when did they start? I guess it was end of 2018 or 2019 when the whole thing started collapsing. We got rates up to the whopping 2.5%, and then shot up quite a bit. And as transitory as it is, it seems to be going at a 45-degree angle right now, given the way the Fed usually Fed reacted to COVID last year. Now, if there's a new Delta variant, Jerome Powell seems concerned about it. I don't know what to believe because I see a lot of contrary information. So I can't decide that for you. But if Jerome is the one working the printing press and he's saying it's a real catastrophe, and this is what he did when it came last year, whether it's a catastrophe or not, what's he going to do this time? So there is that, which leads me to think the inflation will not be transitory. I mean, although, again, Jerome Powell is also quoted as saying he doesn't think the balance sheet, he doesn't think there's a connection. It's like saying, it's like buying a hot dog if you need a new car. He doesn't see any correlation between the two. So factor that in. And here's another thing. Maybe someone can call the number. I'm going to call too. By the way, as I mentioned, I've been editing one of my calls to iShares where you hear their best attempt at an explanation of how the price of silver fell 10% on the day their trust set a historic record for silver added. Maybe I'll record whenever I call. I might save this for next week, but if you call 202-452-2955, you can ask the Federal Reserve why they terminated an enforcement action with JP Morgan. So basically, they had a cease and desist order with JP Morgan. It looks going back to 2015 is when it was dated. And if you look at it, it's interesting because it's kind of like, they got caught doing something. Like if your kid gets like caught shoplifting when he's 5 years old, he doesn't know any better. And, you say, all right, hey, that's not right. You're not supposed to do that. Let's look at who was involved with this cease and desist order. Department of Justice, who just charged 4 of their traders with the RICO statute. Controller of Currency, the CFTC, the FCA in London. And anyway, they reached a settlement, and basically it was predicated upon correcting the errors so that doesn't happen again. So for example, JP Morgan Chase lacked adequate firm-wide governance, risk management, compliance, audit procedures, and procedures to ensure that the firms covered FX actions, which many people would lump gold and silver into foreign exchange. So you see, oh my God. it is clicking in as I am doing the video. So think about it. Because this cease and desist order was in 2015, right? And it just ended last week. And somewhere in here, I believe the time period that this covered was that 2008 to 2013 time period. Here you see, JP Morgan shall submit written plans that are acceptable. Basically in there somewhere is, you know, you have to stop rigging markets. You have to stop cheating. You have to stop doing this and that. Where's the date that this covered? I'm pretty sure I saw that this action was covering that 2008 to 2013 time period, which is the time period that John Edmonds and the other traders who are being arrested now were charged with. They got arrested a couple of years ago and charged now or sentenced now for crimes during that 2008 to 2013 period. And there we go. Whereas JP Morgan has conducted a review occurring from 2008 to 2013. So the Fed terminated this probation last week, and now this week we have this news coming out. I cannot tell you exactly what that means or how it will unfold, but I don't have all the information, but I'm just noticing that there are these different events happening. So anyway, but you can call next week, 202-452-2955. Those are some good questions to ask. A few more before we wrap up. I thought this was interesting. Mainstream media is now on the defensive. Mainstream media faces will soon be saying unheard of words, trying to save themselves from the retribution that is coming. This will totally freak out the left and the normies. I'm not going to attempt to explain that, except say that intuitively, I am feeling something very similar. There is this also from Cliff High that I know some people like more than others. That's fine. I've found a lot of the things he said incredible, especially he forecast a lot of what is happening now regarding the debate of the medicine, the cure, and all that stuff regarding the virus. And similar that, you know, he had mentioned August 15th was one of the things that had me thinking about it and researching more. Then you had the unraveling of the September 11th war. And here you see new level of new info coming out over this last 12 hours indicates we are in the bubble of rising emotional tensions about 1.5 days early. Level of shit hitting the internet fan can be expected to continue and grow and peak into the 24th. Could there be a connection to a bizarre tweet from the IMF who says, when will countries receive their quota of the US 650 billion SDR allocation? Now you can play along at home and say, was it August 23rd, August 23rd, August 23rd, or as 18.8% of the people voted for August 23rd? There is Ronin Destroyer. And which will the rich countries donate their allocation to the poor countries in Africa? Probably not. Although before we wrap up, just a couple last fun ones. Also on the CFTC site, Office of the Inspector General. This is another oversight group, so you can get more information, 202-418-5510. Or you can write or email, and you can send them that video, how to report Ralston Benham, or the letter I wrote to Ralston Benham. Go on the Arcadia page, type Arcadia Economics letter. It'll come up so you can see all the questions that Ralston has declined to answer to his constituents. And then lastly, I know I shared this before, but I just think it was interesting that while all this was happening, here we are. Oh no, here is the other footage. Here's the Washington Monument. This is right before August 15th. You see just like last scene of Back to the Future mixed with a Tesla coil. Ooh, could be a good night to watch The Prestige. This is what, oh, wow, this was happening June 4th. 2020. So apparently that's a regular occurrence. Happened again last week on the 50th anniversary of the Nixon shock. And anyway, here we are. Fed's done. Cease and desist. No longer. Although JP Morgan traders have been charged with RICO racketeering charges. And that is today's silver news. Never know what'll happen over the weekend, but I do hope you're all doing well out there in terms of silver. It's going to happen when it happens. So really, there's nothing to do. If you're sitting here watching this, then you've already thought about this stuff plenty. And with that said, I'm going to go relax, hit the pool, then maybe the beach, diversify the portfolio, and get, oh yes, the one last thing I will do today, we're going to have a meeting, hoping to get these Silverfest hotels planned out shortly. Oh, actually, we did have one more story here to cover. Although I will finish that thought. We are hopefully get that settled within the next week so that, you know, I've been wanting to get the information out for people who are like to come. I understand that is this thing that I'm looking for? I understand that the date is coming up shortly. Although that's really one of the things I've been doing in between the show and my daily research is going to check out the different resorts, make sure we have a place that is good for us. And yes, here is the last piece of news that I thought you would want to be aware of, because many of you First Majestic Silver fans, myself included, and First Majestic did report second quarter financial results, quarterly dividend. We'll go quickly through the highlights. New company record of 154.1 million revenue following Jarrett Canyon. Average realized silver price per ounce 27.32. Cash costs increased to 13.89 per silver equivalent ounce. All-in sustaining costs relatively unchanged at 19.42. Net earnings of 15.6 million. Earnings per share of 6 cents. Compared to 1.9 million in Q1, adjusted EPS of a nickel after excluding non-cash, non-recurring items. And quick word from Keith, improved production rates and higher metal prices during the quarter generated record revenues for the business. As a result of the higher revenues, our quarterly dividend increased by approximately 33% when compared to the prior quarterly payment. So that is on the First Majestic Silver website, and I'll put that in the link in the description field below. And with that said, hope you're all having a great weekend. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch, and I guess just the last thing I've been told is just pretend it's like a movie. These guys are going to do weird stuff, false flags, hopefully nothing dangerous, but just actually my favorite thing I heard in the last week. Speak to people as if today would be the last chance you'd ever have to say something. Not in a negative way, but just a good time to go easy on each other. Maybe somebody says something that you think is out there and you disagree. You know, you can listen, you can ask why, you know, don't just, everyone is learning to walk again, metaphorically, at least is how it feels to me, with a lot of truth coming out. And if we've seen how much they distort silver and gold, you know, and then you see what they're doing with medicine and science. So anyway, just a good day. So I will wish you all a wonderful weekend. Thank you for being here. Hope you're doing well, and hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because you never know what we may do emergency coverage before then. So I'll see you soon.